daughter picked up tips to help if she was bullied.
What's helped me is to just let it go, or if it's bothering you that much, talk to your parents about it, or an adult. Even though it may be embarrassing or hard to talk about, if you're being bullied, you need to speak up.
To find more tips and tools to protect your child from cyberbullying, look to stopbullying.gov or search bullying on jw.org.
My son Ian was diagnosed with a brain tumor at the age of 16 months. The outlook was pretty rough. I mean, it was, we had no hope until St. Jude rescued us. I mean, they saved him. To this date, we are 12 years into this journey, and from day one, we've never once seen a bill. It gave us the peace of mind to know that we're there with our son, and we're gonna beat cancer together. Now, he is doing really, really well. He's alive because of what St. Jude has done. He's here because of the doctors who came before, their blood, their sweat, their tears, the knowledge accumulated and shared, with everyone else around the world. This is how we get rid of this, how we help kids beat cancer all over. It's the future.
Together, we will make cures possible for every child everywhere. Learn more at stjude.org.
As you get older, it's more important than ever to eat healthy. But that can be hard for those of us who are retired and living on a fixed income, especially during COVID-19. A friend told me about benefitscheckup.org. It's a free website from the National Council on Aging, and it's helped millions of older Americans pay for healthy food. Maybe it can help you. Benefitscheckup.org. You've earned this. This message is supported by the Administration for Community Living.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
5:05 now on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update, and we're counting down to tip-off as the Aggies looking for win number 23 tonight, hosting the Colorado State Rams in the Spectrum for a late game. Tips off at 9 o'clock this evening. Our pregame will begin at 8 o'clock. Now, during pregame, we're going to hear from Coach Calhoun, who spoke to the media yesterday as the Aggies continue with just 7 games left. And Coach Calhoun said right now the main issue is preparing for teams that they face, but also keeping each other healthy.
Each day, just making sure we're going long, but not too long, and making sure that we get the work we need done in, but not overwork them this time of year, I think is really important.
Now, we'll hear more from the coach tonight. Coming up with our pregame begins at 8 o'clock. Again, tip-off at 9 o'clock. And then our postgame Aggie call beginning right around 11 here on KVNU. Well, in other news, Logan City officials have announced that next Monday will be the last chance for residents to go ice skating at the Carroll and Jim Law Plaza in downtown Logan. The city officials said that due to the early onset of spring weather conditions, officials have decided to close the ice skating rink at the Law Plaza earlier than normal this season. Now, the ice skating rink actually closed about 2 weeks later last year. Now, during the final days of operation, the ice rink will still be holding skating sessions during its regular schedule, but that could change due to inclement weather in the forecast. And a defendant with a decade of convictions appeared for sentencing on 6 cases of theft and deception charges for defrauding residents across southern Utah. Now, that defendant, Shandon Gale Young, a 44-year-old of Hurricane, appeared back in January for what was scheduled to be a plea hearing at 5th District Court in St. George. Now, during the hearing, the defendant pled guilty to 8 charges that were filed in 6 separate cases. That included 3 second-degree felony charges of theft, extortion, a pattern of criminal activity, and intentional financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, while he also pleaded guilty to 4 third-degree felony counts of theft by deception and 1 misdemeanor of bad check charge. Well, cold temperatures expected to continue over the next couple of days as we've had clouds today, temperatures in the high 20s. Tonight, clouds are expected to clear. We're going to see temperatures drop to around 5 degrees overnight. Then tomorrow, high's going to only be around 23, even with the sunshine, but with the wind chill, it's going to feel more like 6 degrees as it's going to be a cold Wednesday. But then the storm comes in, bringing some warmer weather. We'll have a chance of snow beginning Thursday, and then that's going to turn into rain for Friday and the weekend. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Quality First Insurance. I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News Update.
If the cold temps lately have you turning up the thermostat, I've got a more efficient way to keep your home comfortable. Call Cardall's Insulation. That's right, insulation. Now you're probably wondering, does insulation actually go bad? Well, if your home was built before 1980, you should really consider new insulation because today's insulation is so much better. Even a lot of newer homes don't have sufficient insulation. So if your home is cold, if you feel a draft, call 755-5012. Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012.
Breaking news and stimulating talk. KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
People can say what they want, but flowers still make a girl's heart melt. I know, because that's how I feel every time he sends me flowers. If you want to have that effect on the girl in your life, call Plant Peddler Floral today and get them ordered. Call right now and it's done. You won't have to think about it later. Just make the call, give them a credit card number and her delivery address. Call Plant Peddler Floral at 753-0444. Send her flowers, make her heart melt. Call Plant Peddler Floral, 753-0444.
Hi, Cache Valley. This is Dan Newmeyer at Blue Sky Restoration, formerly ARS. Do you know what to do if you are experiencing water flooding inside your home? First, make sure everyone is safe, turn off the water, and call Blue Sky. Do you know where the water shutoff is at in your home? If you don't, call Blue Sky and we'll send out a representative for free to help you find it and tag it so you can be prepared if an emergency arises. Remember Blue Sky, restoring your property and your life for a brighter tomorrow.
Have you heard about Speed Queen washers and dryers yet? This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. It's true, they are high-quality machines and are best sellers. At the end of the month, they are raising prices. This is your last chance to get 2024 pricing. If you buy a washer and dryer set, we will give you free hoses and a detergent kit. See store for details. Hurry while supplies last. Make sure you have Daryl's service with your cell. Experience the Daryl's difference. Daryl's Appliance, west on Airport Road.
Get your heating fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. If you notice smoke and flames, it may be too late. Did you know heating equipment is the leading cause of house fires in the United States? When was the last time you changed your furnace filter? It's free Furnace Filter February at Gary Riggs Services. Stop by our new location at 1580 North 600 West. Enter to win a free duct cleaning and ask for your free filter while supplies last. Get your heating fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs.
Got a fundraiser, charity drive, or nonprofit event coming up? Let us help spread the word. Send the details to calendar@cvradio.com and we'll share it with our community. From bake sales to benefit concerts to community celebrations, Cache Valley Media Group is here to amplify your efforts. We're proud to support the people and causes that make our community stronger. Email calendar@cvradio.com today and let's build a better, more connected community, one event at a time.
Coming up on the Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, going to look deep into the foreign policy future of the Trump administration with Secretary of State Marco Rubio joining us on the program. We'll ask him about Gaza, Ukraine, Iran, southern border, and so much more. We'll also give you news of the day about everything Doge is up to, driving Democrats crazy. Going to be a great show on Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. It's time for this week's sneak peek at Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. Every Tuesday on the show, Sutherland Institute allows our listeners to get a little snippet of the full hour episode, which you can watch in its entirety at sutherlandinstitute.org. Defending Ideas is their weekly podcast, basically, or video cast that covers a range of issues. But this week, a very timely topic they're taking up because there is a bill, House Bill 300. Now, there are several election bills. New Republican Doug Fiafia has a bill that aims to speed up Election Day ballot counting so that we get results sooner. It happens, right? We sometimes have these races that are so close we don't know for days, even weeks. That's going to happen. But the concern with this bill, Fiafia has said, is that there are certain counties that were days out and didn't really have a good reason. So that's a separate bill. This discussion today from Nick Dunn, speaking alongside R Street Institute resident fellow in governance, Jonathan Madison, and Sutherland Institute's Chief Growth Officer, Derek Monson. They're talking about House Bill 300. And this is a bill that I jokingly said, leave it up to the House to reinvent in-person voting and just call it something else. And my criticism there is, look, if you're going to go there, just go there, and take the heat from your constituents. A very smart person once said to me, if you want to evaluate legislation, the very first question you should ask yourself is, what problem does this solve? And so far, the sponsor of House Bill 300 has not been able to answer that question. So, in a sane legislature, the bill would die. It didn't. It was actually voted out of committee after they acknowledged that it had some major flaws. House Bill 300, what would it do? Basically, they're saying they're not ending mail-in voting, but they are. They realize it's very unpopular in Utah to say you're going to end mail-in voting because people like it. And it's not ripe with fraud. We don't have a fraud issue here in Utah, which is why the sponsor, Representative Jefferson Burton, can't answer the question, what problem does this solve? But what his bill would do is you would still be mailed your ballot if you're a registered voter. But to actually cast that ballot, you'd have to fill it out, seal it in the envelope, and then you couldn't drop it in the mail. You'd have to drive it to a polling location and present ID. So in-person voting. Under criticism during a committee discussion, Burton had acknowledged as well that maybe drop boxes should be put into the mix. Oh, you think? But the problem there is 58% of drop boxes are not accessible to people with disabilities who love mail-in voting. To which Burton's response was, yes, that's a flaw in my bill that I shouldn't have left there. We'll fix it, but please pass it out of committee anyway. And then they did. So it's going to head to a floor debate. I'm confident this is DOA in the Senate. Senate President Stuart Adams has basically said that he doesn't really think they need to be tweaking our election law because we don't have a fraud problem in Utah. That said, there are those who are wedded to the idea of our elections being insecure. How do you gain or restore the public confidence? Now, I would add to the question, can you? If some people are determined to believe elections are stolen, which some are, can you change their mind? Likely not. Should we be changing election law for everyone else because of that? Absolutely not. The folks at Sutherland Institute are nicer than me, and they decided to sit down with resident fellow at R Street Institute, Jonathan Madison, and Chief Growth Officer at Sutherland, Derek Monson, in a conversation hosted by our good friend Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute to try and answer this question. Is House Bill 300 a good idea? How do you restore confidence for those who have lost it? And balance that with the expectation of convenience in our election process. Here is this week's sneak peek at Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas.
So let's dive right in, because this of course, for our audience is familiar, has become a major point of debate in recent years, and especially in recent months. Every time there's a big election cycle, it seems like in recent years, there's debate and discussion around voting and election policy. And really, we've mentioned this a few times before on the show, but I really think it helps to sort of recenter to this very basic principle that it should be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And we didn't coin that. I don't remember where it came from initially. I think in years past in the state of Georgia, when there were some disputes about voting, it came up then. But just easy to vote and hard to cheat. So we want to protect the security and integrity of our election processes. We also want to protect the access to the ballot box for the voter. So what we're going to be talking about today is really different proposals or debates about one or both of those ideas, and hopefully kind of have a sense of the best way to balance all of that. So the first thing I want to ask you both is, here in Utah, we're in the middle of our state legislative session. There are some proposals to reform voting and election policy here in Utah, and you both have been tracking it closely and involved with this. And so maybe kind of start there. Let's just get an overview for our listeners of what is being proposed here in Utah and kind of where is the debate about that. So maybe, Jonathan, if you want to go first, what have you been observing that is proposed at the legislature? Give us kind of the rundown of what's being considered.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this legislative session. Most recently I testified on a bill that's looking to introduce voter ID, but in a way that basically would radically change the way mail-in voting works right now in Utah. And so it would require voters to vote in person, either on election day, as people do now, or you can still go to a drop box, but these drop boxes would be open only during a certain time and be manned, and you do that. Or you could still technically opt out and mail in your ballot, but you'd have to go every 2 years and show your identification that way. They're also considering some other reforms to the primary election system, in specific requiring a primary election that doesn't produce a majority winner in the first round to go to a runoff election that would be held later and then just between the top two candidates. And then just some other general election administration stuff, in specific removing the state from ERIC, which is monitors like voter rolls amongst several states and helps states clean up their voter rolls, and trying to find an alternative to that.
Let's stay on the vote by mail changes for a second. Derek, the House Bill 300 is kind of the main bill that is garnering a lot of discussion about, again, how we vote. Can you remind our listeners what is the status quo? What do we do in Utah currently? And how would this bill, as it's currently constituted, change, again, how you can vote here in Utah?
Well, right now, every active voter, meaning someone who's been voting in the system and not been kind of absent for years, I guess, out of the voting process, gets their ballot in the mail automatically. It's just sent to the kind of most recent address, that it's on file from the county clerk's office. And then you have a period of time where you can fill out that ballot. There's an early voting period that starts several weeks before election day.
Welcome back to KVNU.
You can mail it in, you can take it to a drop box, you can take it to a voting center early, or you can go on election day and drop it that way. So that's kind of how our process has been since 2020. It's ramped up to that between 2014 and 2020. And even before 2014, you could sign up on a list to vote that way, where you get it in the mail. And so the point is, mail-in voting in the current form has been around for decades, several decades now. It's something that's kind of long established in the state, whether it used to be voluntary or it's become default. And it would change that simply because these extra steps required to be on that list. Probably, given the fact that most laws and legal changes most people don't ever really hear about, right, until something hits them with it, it probably means a lot of people will just fall off the voting rolls because they, despite everything in the news, I mean, this is true of any law, right? No matter how much it gets in the news, a lot of people end up not knowing that a change has happened until, say, a tax increase comes out of their paycheck or something like that. And so in this case, what that means is they stop getting their ballot in the mail. And that would probably lead to a significant drop in the number of voters who participate. Now, maybe that rebounds over time because people go and sign up. Who knows? But it's a change that would have an impact. And the questions then become, well, is that change really needed? Because you are going to significantly impact this expression of self-government, and there probably ought to be compelling reasons for that.
Do you have a sense that, because again, kind of that theme we started with of easy to vote, hard to cheat, again, balancing security and integrity and voter access, it seems like whenever we end up in one of these debates, either here in Utah or anywhere in the nation about voting and election policy, the contours of the debate tend to kind of pit those two things against each other, saying, well, we need to do something to increase the security and integrity of our elections, But it seems like that often or usually comes at the expense of voter access to the ballot box. And then on the other side, sometimes you have people talking about, let's just make it way, way easier to vote. Some people have even floated, automatic voter registration. But does that cause concerns on the security side? So can you talk through, does this debate in Utah, does it seem to be kind of pitting those two things against each other? And if so, is there a way to move forward as a state that would actually balance those principles?
Yeah, well, if it does get pitted against each other, I think it's because the people who are making the arguments think it should be pitted against each other. There are some people out there who really think voting should be completely easy, and that's the only thing that really matters. Security is something they care about, but they just don't really care about it that much because they think it's not a problem, so they just don't prioritize it or whatever. And then there are others who really think, well, no, voting maybe shouldn't be that easy, because we want educated and informed voters, and that means not giving everybody easy access to the ballot. The good policy approach on this, actually, I think, is a balance. You can accomplish both of these things, where it is easy to vote, and you still have secure measures on voting. I think Utah's vote by mail system actually accomplishes that when you really look at a lot of the evidence. There isn't any pattern of significant voter fraud that's been going on. They did an audit, for instance, on this. The legislature did, and the results of that came out at the end of last year. And they noted that there was some consistent problems that had happened between multiple audits in previous years and the one from last year. But when you examine the things that they found, the really problematic things went from 40 in a 2022 election all the way down to 2 in the most recent election they looked at last year. And that's big progress, right? That means our systems are working. And so, again, thinking do we have compelling reasons for the changes that they're proposing? I haven't quite seen them yet. There have been some arguments, that Utah is the only Republican vote-by-mail state. And politically, I can see why that would be a concern for people. But from a policy standpoint, from a voter standpoint, that doesn't quite pass the test, I think.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, I think he's definitely right. And that, is it happening in Utah? Yes, it is, because I attended, like I said, on Tuesday, a hearing on House Bill 300. And so, yes, there were a lot of people against the bill who said, cheating doesn't really happen, so, who even cares about, election security? That's not a big priority to them, like you mentioned. And then one of the representatives, when he went to vote in favor of the bill, said that, you have to choose between convenience and integrity, and so today I'm going to choose integrity. But I actually think, as Derek was just mentioning, that, there are a lot of nuanced ways to do both, and in Utah we can do that. And there are definitely ways to look at doing that. Because what actually came up, especially among a lot of the Republicans in favor of the bill, was that they want results to be ready faster because it makes people uneasy when it takes a long time, and it did take a long time. And sometimes that is related to the mail, but there are ways to fix that. And that Utah voters, as Sutherland data has shown, want some form of voter ID. Both of those are worthy objectives that I think all of us can get behind, but there are better ways to do that without making voting far more inconvenient for Utahns than it is now. And I think, just to go off of something else that Derek had mentioned, that, Utah is the only currently Republican vote-by-mail state. But something I actually noticed is that most vote-by-mail states are Western states, like Oregon, Washington, California. And so it's actually, if you look at a U.S. history perspective, it's not the first time, and it's actually much more common for democratic innovation to happen in the Western United States before it happens in the East. And so there is this tendency to frame it as a Republican versus Democrat thing, but I think it's more of a West versus East thing, and I don't think Utahns should be ashamed of leading in this area, because Utah has led in democratic issues from women voting to citizen initiatives a lot in the past as well. And so I think that's just an important context to keep in mind as well.
That's a really good point. I think it ties back to something that Derek has talked about and he's written about before, is this idea that we really should be driven by sound evidence, sound principles. That should be the thing that helps us arrive at good election policy, and maybe worry a little bit less about kind of how we compare to different states based on their political makeup, But really just if it's sound evidence, if it's administered well, as you said, Derek, if there's not really evidence of widespread fraud, then we should just kind of stick to those best practices. And Derek, I want to touch on, Jonathan mentioned some new Sutherland survey data. We recently put out this issue brief called Election Reform and Public Trust that we'll, of course, link to in the show notes. And I want to ask you to expand on this a little bit because it really does kind of get at the heart of this question of these various potential reforms that are being discussed. Do they increase trust? Do they decrease trust? That hopefully can give a little bit of a roadmap for, again, how you balance those two principles. So one, Derek, I guess I want to ask you, was there anything in particular that stood out to you from this new issue brief that we think needs to be centered in the discussion we're having right now with policymakers?
Fascinating conversation, honestly. I recommend everyone go listen to the whole episode, SutherlandInstitute.org. Defending Ideas tab there, you'll find it. Again, it is... They're asking some important questions here. We have to ask these questions. What problems are we trying to solve? Is it reasonable to rewrite our entire election system because a handful of people who backed a certain candidate in the gubernatorial races this last spring are convinced the election was stolen from them? Or is it time to look at the data and say, Utah's election system seems to be working pretty dang well? Or somewhere in between. Sutherland, again, they're nicer than I am. So they're hitting kind of somewhere in between saying, could we tweak things a little bit? Because obviously things can always be improved. I like the idea of making sure that counties are, ready to go when polls close on election night and can put out some results within an hour. But I also understand that's not the end of the world if that doesn't happen and people have to wait until the next day to get their election results. And it happens anyway if you have a super close race. I would like to see more drop boxes and more accessible polling locations on election day. So yeah, there's always room for improvement. But when it comes to our vote by mail system, it's been 13 years. We don't have a fraud problem. And I'm not sure what the purpose of House Bill 300 is. But again, I go listen to the whole conversation at SutherlandInstitute.org. You'll enjoy it whether you agree or not. And we'll be back after the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Yesterday on Utah's Capitol Hill, members of the Healthy Environmental Alliance for Utah and the Sierra Club showed up to lobby lawmakers against bills that they say dramatically expand nuclear power in the state. However, it's been a top priority for Governor Spencer Cox and House and Senate leadership. The House recently voted unanimously to support House Bill 249, which would create a consortium to explore where small-scale nuclear power plants could operate. Now, the bill is now at the Senate, while some environmental groups say they have concerns, though, about uranium extraction and how to handle waste. Senator Mike McKell, a Republican from Spanish Fork, has introduced Senate Bill 216 dealing with nuclear waste capacity, while Representative Britta Bollinger, a Republican from Grantsville, has filed House Bill 254 on the definition of radioactive waste. Now, Heal Utah's Carmen Valdez says she's concerned the bills are opening the door to store hotter radioactive waste in the Beehive State. But Energy Solutions, which handles waste disposal, said it's supportive of the initiative to develop safe nuclear power generation in Utah. Well, a West Jordan man is now facing multiple felony charges after allegedly attempting to meet with minors in what turned out to be an undercover police operation. Taylor Bergen, a 34-year-old, was arrested over the weekend in Lehigh during what he thought was a meetup with two 13-year-old girls. In reality, it was actually an investigator with the Lehigh Police Department posing as a minor online. Now, prosecutors say that Bergen had engaged in conversations with the undercover officer on a social media platform in January. Court records indicate that he allegedly continued communication after even finding out that the girl was supposedly a minor. At one point, he even asked the fictional girl if she had a friend who would be willing to meet up with him as well. Now, according to the probable cause affidavit, Bergen drove from West Jordan to Lehigh to meet them. Officers conducted a traffic stop and took him into custody. And 2 people aboard a small plane that reported engine problems yesterday were not injured after they were forced to make an emergency landing in Tooele County. The Tooele County Sheriff's Office reported the plane experienced engine problem and communication issues during its flight. Now, because of the problems, the pilot was able to safely make an emergency landing near Raleigh Road. Although the landing site was near Interstate 80, law enforcement said traffic was not impacted along the freeway. Well, cold temperatures coming in tonight as we've had highs only in the high 20s today and tonight. The clouds expected to clear out. We're going to see clear skies overnight. Should have a beautiful view of that full moon, but it's going to be cold. Down to around 5 degrees overnight. Then tomorrow, only around 23 for our high. With the wind chill, it's going to feel much colder, and then we'll start to see a chance of some snow beginning Thursday as the storm comes in, bringing a mix of rain and snow for several days. News and weather this hour brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Their 55 and 80-pound washers can always handle those extra loads of laundry for you with ease and save you some money. It's Mount Logan Laundry. I'm Will Theorite with your KVNU News Update.
ABC News, I'm Richard Cantu. Well, it is February, and a treacherous mix of snow, freezing rain, and ice from a sprawling winter storm is wreaking havoc across much of the country.
Whiteout conditions in Virginia, up to a foot of snow in spots. Multiple tractor trailers stranded along Interstates 81 and 64 near Stanton. The governor declaring a state of emergency. Traffic cameras on I-95 showing multiple accidents near Richmond. Virginia State Police reporting more than 24 injuries across the state. Snowfall rates of an inch an hour in the nation's capital. Schools and federal offices shutting down early. And up to an inch of ice weighing down trees across northwest Arkansas.
ABC's Stephanie Ramos. Russia released English teacher Mark Fogel, detained since August of 2021. California's insurance department says the plan that covers homeowners who can't get private coverage needs $1 billion to pay out wildfire claims. This is ABC News.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Hi, this is Chloe Allen. I play Emma in Music Theater West's production of Emma the Musical. Meet me downtown at the Utah Theater on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday for our delightful show. And enjoy dining and shopping in downtown Logan with those you love and care about to make Valentine's Day a special occasion this year.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Danes will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Dr. Danes for an appointment at 753-HERE and let him show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
This Valentine's Day, give a piece of jewelry from S.E. Needham Jewelers. Save time and money by taking advantage of our Valentine's Day special. With the purchase of any jewelry valued at $149 or more, you'll receive dinner for two, chocolates and flowers. You can have Valentine's Day covered in one stop. Choose from a large selection of diamonds, pearls, gold, and silver jewelry. Also, your jewelry will come in our signature gift box. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
How are your eyes? Is your vision not as clear as it used to be? Did you know over 24 million Americans over the age of 40 are affected by cataracts? This is Dr. Christian Nilsson from the Northern Utah Eye Center. Cataract surgery is one of the safest, most common, and effective surgical procedures performed today. With cataract removal, patients can choose new lenses to customize their vision. Our surgical team will ensure your vision is our focus. Visit northernutaheyecenter.com or call 752-2020 today.
You're gonna love what you see.
Get ready for the boldest way to Baja, Mexico. Morris Columbus Travel and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines are excited to announce the Ovation of the Seas, the biggest ship in the West, sailing from LA starting in June. Enjoy skydiving, a water park, bumper cars, and flow rider surf lessons on your way to Ensenada and Cabo. Call Morris Columbus Travel to book today.
Come on and get away. Morris Columbus.
Want to set yourself apart from the competition? The Leadership MBA at Utah State University will help you lead companies and drive change in your organization. You can attend in person in Logan on Thursday evenings or take an interactive online class. Complete your MBA in as little as a year. Apply before March 1st to be considered for summer semester. Contact the MBA office for a waiver of the $55 application fee. Learn more at utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. It's been on the front page of Cache Valley Daily for a bit now, but we haven't talked about it here on the show. I just wanted to throw it out for our listeners because really, I mean, this is a Logan City meeting, but regardless of where you live in the Valley, this is for you. UDOT is planning to hold a public meeting and inviting the public to participate in the meeting for the future of Logan Main Street. So several studies have been done. Mayor Holly Daines, when she was with us a couple of months ago, actually mentioned this, that the UDOT and members of Logan Municipal Council have been in regular conversations and, reviewing some of these studies, and state officials through UDOT have made some suggestions of how things could improve the flow of traffic on Main Street. Specifics have been slim in the discussion. And this meeting, by the way, is slated for 4:30 to 6:30, Tuesday, February 25th. It'll take place at Mount Logan Middle School. So again, a 2-hour meeting, Tuesday, February 25th at Mount Logan Middle School, with UDOT, Logan City Municipal Council members, Mayor Daines, and others will be on hand. But the goal is to invite the public to discuss some of the current plans and some of the long-term future plans for Logan Main Street. You can see this via the link I've posted on our Facebook page. It's also contained in the CacheValleyDaily.com story, which I've also linked to on our Facebook page. The study, again, is roughly looking at 1,200 south in Providence to 2,500 north, and they are including areas outside of there traffic-wise all the way to 6th East and 6th West. So it's obviously UDOT only controls Main Street, which is U.S. Highway 91 running through Logan. But obviously decisions that are made regarding Main Street do affect those surrounding streets and east to west traffic as well. I've been a big a proselytizer of a physical median on Main Street. I bring it up jokingly here on the show, but I am dead serious. I think one of the biggest things UDOT could do to make traffic flow better, but also reduce the opportunities for accidents, which slow traffic quite a bit, obviously, when they happen, but also are a pain for everyone involved, with a physical median. It's worked in Salt Lake along certain streets, State Street, portions of State Street, and even 13th East. They've used physical medians to deter one thing. Now, we wouldn't need a physical median if drivers would just take my advice on this as well. Don't turn left onto Main Street outside of an intersection, and preferably an intersection with a light. A couple of reasons for this. One, it's a really bad decision, time-wise, safety-wise. It is so much faster to make a right turn and go around however many blocks you have to go around to get to a lighted intersection where you can safely make a left turn with a green arrow. Much faster than sitting there with your left turn signal on, looking for that tiny little window of opportunity to turn left across 2 oncoming lanes of traffic to make it to the median, and then wait there in the median until you have a spot to get into the traffic in the direction you're trying to head. It's the most boneheaded thing I see drivers do every day. I see it out on the highway, the southern portion of US 91, where the speeds are 60, 65. It makes no sense to me why you would turn left across all of that traffic, expose yourself to all of those potential very dangerous accidents, even at low speeds, because you're exposing your driver's side, you, the driver, to oncoming traffic to cross those lanes. It boggles me that we see this all the time. Drivers apparently aren't going to stop doing this themselves, so I think a physical median would make a huge difference. But that is one tiny part of what would, some of the proposals over the years have been fascinating. Much to, it's counterintuitive, I know, but the frequent stops at stoplights along Main Street actually do encourage good traffic flow and safety. The idea behind these stoplights, of course, is to release congestion on the east to west connecting roads and keep traffic flowing. But stoplights also stop anyone from getting up to a high enough speed that an accident is going to be anything more than maybe a fender bender. But it is also a matter of timing those lights correctly, placing those lights. I've seen proposals that included everything from losing a few lights here and there to physically blocking certain intersections that don't have a light, that are currently just a stop sign. There are experiments that have been done with right turn only and left turn only lights and leaving them running for certain amounts of time. Overall, though, the reality is traffic on Main Street is going to be heavy. That's the one thing that I think doesn't change over the next 10 years. Eventually, I think as population grows, people in Cache Valley are going to embrace public transit and Connect Transit, formerly CVTD. I think also with that more public embrace of public transit, you're going to see higher investment in public transit. So the transit system gets better, more frequent stops, more frequent routes, things like that. Becomes more useful for people in their day-to-day life, Monday through Friday at least. That's obviously got to be a part of it. But the reality is Main Street, there is never going to be a time when you're not going to see, at least in morning and afternoon commute periods, congestion and gridlock on Main Street. So I think being realistic about that, we have to look at what would just keep traffic flowing more. There's gridlock where you're slowed to 25 miles an hour and you're hitting every light, stopping and starting a lot. And then there's gridlock where you're just at a standstill for a long period of time. I think that's the realistic goal. What can we do to make sure there aren't standstill periods of time on Main Street in Logan? I'm telling you, physical median, reduce the number of connecting intersections where possible, stop people from turning left onto Main Street in the middle of a block. Now, I know, some businesses are going to gripe about this. The reality is, though, that the faster and more safely people can get in and out of your parking lot, the more business you're going to have long term. And again, I think as drivers, we all need to learn to love the right-hand turn. It seems faster, maybe, to sit there with your signal on, waiting to turn left. It never is. Ask any FedEx or UPS driver. In fact, the safety benefit is so vast that some of these delivery companies have actually made a company policy for drivers to not make left turns unless they're at a lighted left turn dedicated lane intersection. Other than that, drivers are actually trained and it is company policy for them to make right turns. Again, it seems counterintuitive because in certain situations, you're going to have to make 3 or 4 right turns to get back to an intersection with a green arrow for you to make that left turn. Time it one time, though. It honestly, I've done this. It is almost always faster. Now, of course, there are exceptions. If you're sitting at a certain intersection at 3 in the morning on Main Street, Logan, you're probably going to be able to safely and quickly make a left-hand turn onto Main Street. But outside of that, normal daytime hours, especially morning and afternoon commute times, sitting there with your left turn signal on is a decision to waste your own time and put yourself at risk. The odds of an accident go up multiple times over in that scenario. So my point here is, obviously I just like to gripe about this. That's part of my point. But my point here is that I think when we talk about Main Street, we're always talking about, what a bypass route, for example. How can we get all these people on a different road? And that's a great idea and something we're obviously going to have to consider for the future as the population grows in Cache Valley. But I think we need to also wrap our heads around the fact when we go to a public meeting like this, it is also about these small incremental things that will just keep traffic flowing. There's never going to be a completely congestion-free 24/7 Main Street Logan. Not going to happen. But how can we keep traffic flowing? How can we reduce the number of accidents and delays? That's the conversation. So Tuesday, February 25th, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at Mount Logan Middle School, UDOT, the Utah Department of Transportation, is inviting everyone in Cache Valley. They're working with Cache County, local cities, Logan City, of course, primarily on this. The study area includes US 8991 and adjacent routes and local roadways with the goal of identifying potential traffic and also non-motorized solutions for long-term future planning. That will be a part of this as well. If you can't attend in person, please visit the website for the study, which I've linked to again, which is u.input.utah.gov, and just click on the US 91 study link there. Visit that website after February 18th, but before the 25th meeting, and you can actually read through what will be discussed at the 25th meeting and provide online feedback. So, again, a link to that is in the CacheValleyDaily.com story that I've linked to on our Facebook page. And I hope everyone in the Valley makes some time for this because, again, a Logan resident or not, what happens on Main Street affects us all. So, one more time, February 25th, a Tuesday evening, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at Mount Logan Middle School. If you can't make it in person, after February 18th, all of this will be available online ahead of the meeting on the 25th. So after the 18th, you can actually go to the website and submit online public comment after looking through some of the documents that will be presented at the in-person meeting on the 25th. So again, all those details via the link in the CacheValleyDaily.com story. And we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Happy Valentine's Day from Birch Creek and Bluebird Candy. For your Valentine, choose Birch Creek. Our punch passes are on sale at the spring sale price. Or get your Valentine a gift certificate that can be used for golf or golf lessons from our PGA teaching staff. With every Valentine purchase, receive a free box of chocolates from Bluebird Candy. Birch Creek will be open on Valentine's Day from 10 to 5. So for your Valentine, I invite you to choose Birch Creek and the Bluebird Candy. And happy Valentine's Day.
Got a fundraiser, charity drive, or nonprofit event coming up? Let us help spread the word. Send the details to calendar@cvradio.com and we'll share it with our community. From bake sales to benefit concerts to community celebrations, Cache Valley Media Group is here to amplify your efforts. We're proud to support the people and causes that make our community stronger. Email calendar@cvradio.com today and let's build a better, more connected community, one event at a time.
Fatigue, headaches, weight gain, hair loss, insomnia, anxiety, intestinal issues, joint pain. Do you suffer from consistent symptoms like these, and no matter how many doctors you see, things still don't improve? Whether you have a thyroid problem, an autoimmune issue, or chronic symptoms, we can help. We do complex medical testing and blood work to find the mechanisms driving your symptoms. And then we create a plan to improve each one while we teach you the tools to stay on top of your health. We've been helping patients just like you for almost 14 years now. We see patients from all over the world, and we have an office in St. George, Logan, Salt Lake, Farmington, and Springville. You aren't crazy, you aren't lazy. It's not just because you're getting older, and these symptoms are not normal. No matter what symptoms you have, you shouldn't feel this way, and we can help. Don't accept Band-Aid answers.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
There are a ton of social networking websites, but one stands apart for a very special reason. This one saves lives. It's MatchingDonors.com. MatchingDonors.com links organ donors with people in need of kidney and other transplants. In the U.S., 19 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant, most of them for kidneys. If you've ever considered becoming a living organ donor, or if you have someone in need of an organ transplant, visit MatchingDonors.com. Home of the greatest gift of all, the gift of life. MatchingDonors.com.
Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Hey, it's me, the regular dad. I ask guys like you a few questions, a kind of parenting test. So here goes. What is this sound? Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? That's the sound a young teenager makes when he's done something he regrets. Maybe he got caught up in peer pressure, tried a few drinks at a party, and the next morning, well, he makes this sound. Kind of a sad sound, isn't it? Hear the embarrassment, the reluctance, the pulling away. If you recognized it, then you know exactly what to do. Listen. It might take a long time. A drive together, or a walk that turns into a talk. And that turns into an arm around his shoulder that means you understand. That's when you can really talk, when he knows you understand. Then the both of you can figure out how not to make the same mistake again. I know it's tough. Keep at it. You're doing great.
This message brought to you by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Valentine's Day coming up just a few days away. If anyone out there is hearing this and panicking now, I'm sorry. It is the 14th, and today is the 11th, so clock is ticking. If you're looking for some ways to celebrate your person, your loved one, your the love of your life, and you're looking for some ways to be creative, I found this amazing list of old-timey terms of endearment, ways you can refer to your baby that they probably have never heard before. Some of these dating back to the 19th century. So some suggestions if you're looking for something new to sign on the card or to put on the flowers or just to say, well, out at dinner or whatever your plans are. Here you go. And I dare anyone to use these. Again, old-timey terms of endearments. Once popular, not used that much these days. The first comes from an 1856 poem written by a lady who didn't like to hear babies cry. So she wrote a poem called Babylette, meaning or intending to have the poem be a way to soothe a baby. It caught on and became a term of endearment for couples to use to each other, calling each other Babylette. Chickabiddy. Biddy is another word for chick, obviously. So 18th century English speakers mashed the two together, and chickabiddy became a term of endearment. At first used in reference to a child, but soon it became popular with couples and newlyweds especially. So 16th century Scottish poet William Dunbar wrote a satirical poem about Valentine's Day and love and relationships. He was kind of a cynical person, but much to his dismay, one of the words he used in the poem called "in secret place this hinder nicht," a word caught on. And that term of endearment from his poem was crowdy mouty. This was a term of endearment that referred to, so crowdy was slang for porridge or gruel. And the Mowdy part was just kind of a made-up word he put in the poem. And he also used the word slossy-gossy and rosy slowpoke, but those didn't catch on. But Crowdy Mowdy did. That became a term of endearment. So throw that one in the mix if you dare. Nicofidge. Now, this one's going to take a little bit of an explanation. It was around the 17th century, and people applied it at first to small children and infants, and then it caught on as more widely used, and it was a reference to children being fidgety. But somehow it became Nick-o-fidge, and here's the fun part. No one knows why. So if you're thinking you'll be asked for an explanation on that one, maybe don't use that one. But again, it stems from a term of endearment for a child who can be fidgety, and then it became a famous, actually, Valentine's Day or marriage-related term of endearment, nicophage, knobs. I'm not kidding. This is exclusively, it's actually in the Oxford English Dictionary. I looked it up. This is exclusively for a female sweetheart. And the Oxford English Dictionary doesn't even try to supply some etymology for this one. It's basically a big question mark. The theory behind knobs as a way to refer to your loved one, specifically a female sweetheart, someone you're dating, it comes from nicknames for rabbits. And there was a famous play in which there's a line about my mouse, my knobs, my coney sweet. And that's the belief that this famous play, an anonymously written play, The Trial of Treasure, from 1561 is where it came from. Piggy Wiggy. Now, this one actually is used somewhat in the modern era, but it is a declaration of love, not necessarily a name to use to refer to someone else. I did not know that. But if you're deploying the word Piggy Wiggy, it's you're declaring that you are in love. You are a Piggy Wiggy. You're that happy. Tootsicums. This is a really obsolete 19th century term of endearment that derived from Tootsie, not the Dustin Hoffman movie from the 80s, but it was a common Latin noun ending, icum, that was added to the end of it to make it sound fancy. And get this, it was originally a slang used by podiatrists in reference to women's feet. Yeah, I don't get it either. So there you have it. That's the best I can do as far as Valentine's Day advice. If you're scrambling to get something ready in time, some old-timey terms of endearment you can throw into the mix. You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in. That's our show for today. Stick around. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
Baby, I've seen you here 1,000 times.
Covering all the news. Stay with 610 AM and 102.1 FM. Breaking news and stimulus.